let's not forget what a big winner like this first time starter, number 13 in the seventh race, can do for a pick four. The high rated over 200 and only one first time starter in a six furlong race that's a little weak on contenders, really, for the win. If we were to take the cue from the sixth race on this particular rating for a mile and the 16th, if we were to take the cue on that number two winning that race, which I believe goes along with a race previous to that. No, that is the first one. So that's where we could take that cue. And in a pick four, realizing that the eighth race has scratched down to only four horses, we take that cue on that rating, and we might just, hey, walk up to the window and bet a $2 pick four. 13 as a single in the seventh race. The 13 key horse in the eighth race as a single. The ninth race, as Exacta Magic suggests, let's just take the highest early speed two horses, or the pair that is opposite in run, the low run at high early speed, the energy type run in the stretch at high early speed. Let's just take those two, 7 and 2, and then from that cue in the sixth race, let's take number 7, the favorite in the 10th race, for $2 in that pick four, which is 1 times 1 times 2. Let me see, 1 times 1 is 1 times 2 is 2 times 1, the favorite, and the cue from the sixth race. So that would be 2 times 1 would be, again, 2. So we've got 2 times 2. That's you carry the 1, multiply by pi, divide by $2. It's about $4 for a $2 level pick four. The 50-cent level is $1,964.05. So the $2 level would be 4 times that, which is just shy of $8,000 for a $4 bet. And you don't need to be a genius or a rocket scientist or anything like that. Just, that's a sensible $4 bet using Ability X ratings. And of course, let me get back to the address here, which takes you. Where does it take you? I know it takes you. Oh yeah, it takes you over here, where you can get Ability X ratings, 3-day weekend, which includes a Breeders' Cup this weekend, by the way. You can get it monthly for $29.95 for the entire month of racing at your track, and then you can get it for 1 day. 1 day, $5. But I recommend the 3-day weekender deal, because that is a great deal on Ability X ratings, and it's a great deal that you can use to learn all that you might want about betting on horse racing. So that one and grab some Ability X ratings for the Breeders' Cup coming up starting tomorrow. And thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. Saturday, April 6, 2019 at Keeneland. And of course, these are the at-home horseplayer Ability X ratings that anybody can use to win and make intelligent betting decisions. And if you make intelligent betting decisions, you will be winning. It is that simple. And but obviously, Mr. Win Wagering must have, nailed this sixth race, which is the first of the Pick Five, and apparently they must have decided to bet on this number 11, the Ability X Rating Simple Pick, for the seventh race, the Shakertown Stakes. The sixth is the Commonwealth Stakes. The eighth, the Madison Stakes. Mr. Win Wagering must have decided to bet on number 5, or I'm sure he must have told you, bet on number 5, the Ability X Ratings key horse for the race. And of course, I would have to suppose that Mr. Win Wagering and the crack handicappers certainly suggested to you that you ought to bet this number 8 here, which paid 52 to 1, 106.20 in the ninth race, the Central Bank Ashland Stakes. And of course, simple enough to just recommend the favorite in the Bluegrass Stakes, with it having an Ability X Ratings that usually wins that race. So, it must have been, that must have been part of their great day. And of course, I'm sure they had number 6 here, the Ability X Ratings Simple Pick for the 11th race that paid $17.80 to come in third. And that must have been one of the horses they suggested that you wager on. And, they must have just, slammed it themselves. But let's take a look at how simple it would be for you yourself to decide perhaps which pairs, which ability pairs you might want to bet in this pick 5 here, starting with the 6th race, which is 7 furlongs on the dirt. We can see, if we're looking for the most likely pair to win the race according to Ability X Ratings, we might go with, let's see, number 10 at 15 to 1 morning line odds would be a pair with number 11 at 129 and 98 early speed, which is over the top fast for 7 furlongs. And of course, number 10 is slow, so we could take that pair, fast and slow, for that race, and we'd have 2. If we wanted to bring in another pair, let's see, we could grab 13, and actually I don't think there's a horse paired up with 13, but we could throw, if we wanted to stretch a little bit, we could throw number 13 into that pair, and have a great 3 horses for the exacta also. And in the 7th race, the Ability X Ratings Simple Pick is the morning line 4th choice, and would be a pair with number 6 and number 1. at 20 to 1. So we could, number 12 too, uh, very slow, very low early speed at 20 to 1, but would be four horses in that pair. So we could bet that entire pair if we wanted to, or we could trim it down to just number 11 and number 6 based on early speed, and maybe throw number 1 in for good measure, just to have 3, since there is a 4 horse pair in the race. We could trim out number 12, and we could go 2 by 3 on that pick 5 there. And then the Madison Stakes, we could take the Ability X Ratings Key Horse paired up with number 6, which they would make a pair. And they're both 4 to 1 morning line. We could just toss the favorite out as being way low on early speed, and a good Ability X Ratings for a $20,000 claimer. Uh, but this is the Madison Stakes, so we could take 5 and 6 in our pair uh, very easily. So we'd be 2 by 3 by 2, and that brings us to the Central Bank Ashland Stakes, where we could examine this favorite here at 2 to 1, number 6, and notice the incredible balance here in that run. And take note that number 8 would be a pair with number 6 at 20 to 1 morning line odds, and we could say, hey, okay, let's take that pair and throw them in, and that is your exacta, paying $1 level, $274, and of course the winner, number 8, they allow to go off at 52 to 1. That pays 106.20 for that winner. So where does that put us? 2 times 3. Let's see. I think it's 2 times 3 times 2 times 2. And that brings us to the Bluegrass Stakes, which we have a morning line favorite here, number 2, that eventually wins the race. And we could, this entire 4 horse pair at pretty much that same rating and similar early speed. So we could throw those 4, not that we really need to, but you might want to trim those 4 down to number 2 and number 3 by odds, the favorite and third morning line choice. And you might want to throw number 8 in there for good measure. The Ability X Ratings Key Horse, excellent rating for the distance. Not in particular for the Bluegrass Stakes, but for the distance, excellent rating, Ability X Rating, and early speed combination for that 9 furlong mile and an eighth distance. But you could just go ahead and trim it down to number 2 and number 3 based on the Ability X Ratings par for the distance also. So that would give you 2 times 3 is 6, times 2 is 12, times 2 is 24, times 2 is 48, divided in half for 50 cents would be $24. $24 to bet all those horses in all those races for the 50-cent pick 5 that pays $45,863.45. And all of that is something you can easily do for yourself, playing the greatest wagering game known to mankind, horse racing. A little more difficult to do with the lottery or scratch-off tickets, but horse racing, yeah, it's right there for you when you have at-home horse player Ability X ratings to make intelligent betting decisions. And I'd like to say thank you very much for uh, tuning in, and tune in next week for another exciting episode with At Home Horse Player. Thank you very much. Okay, now that everything is set and hopefully working, I wanted to point out a few things on this opening day at Churchill Downs, October 28th. And yeah, there's my cursor. Uh, that's here. And this is At Home Horse Player Ability X ratings. And I'm trying not to swallow too much on this video here. But I, in particular, wanted to point out not only the winning key horses, like in the fourth race and in the third race, and so on and so forth, not the second, simple pick in the first. But that's 3 out of 4 that were the simple pick or key horse, so I should be able to say that's good. But I wanted to, in particular, talk about this pick 5 and how the old pairs strategy applies to it and late pick 4 and the last pick 3 of the day. And that if you'd like, you don't have to be real rigid on a pair. And we'll show you that. But you actually can put a few different types of pairs in a serial win wager if you would like. And if that makes sense, according to the ratings that are lined up for the race, which is always the first thing you'd want to look at and consider, is the ratings for this particular race, the rating for the favorite, and of course the simple pick key horse rating, and start to compare and think about what might be a likely winner or has a high possibility of winning considering that ability. And then when you want to maybe put 2 in a serial win wager or a pair, you have various pairs that you might want to consider, but you want to keep it according to the ratings. Of course, that's my opinion. And so we'll look at this pick 5 in light of that. Now, the first race of the pick 5 on Sunday, October 28th, opening day at Churchill Downs, was the 7th. And the par for that race, that's another thing you might want to consider along with a pair. And that par is 185. That's the average winners run and then early speed. So you see you have a even money simple pick number 5 to consider. That is the favorite, and then the key horse is number 8 with a 117, which would suggest, along with number 11 and number 1, an ability to run more in the stretch or with more energy or under power, as I like to say. And you might want to just, hey, make that the pair for that 7th race. After all, that would be a reasonable, according to par and according to the favorite and everything else, and the ratings themselves, that might be a reasonable decision, is to make that your pair for the 7th race. And maybe slide a little exact action on there with the pick 5, because because that pays 108.60 for the $2 level. And then in the eighth, we have one of the favorites is a simple pick, number 2, and you might want to pair that up with number 4 because they are a ratings pair. So there you go. There's a nice ratings pair that compares well with the favorite and the simple pick. You might decide in light of these ratings here that the key horse is kind of on the low side. 8 furlong race. So you might make 2 and 4, that pair, ratings pair. Then in the ninth race, you might, in view of the ratings for this mile and 16th 100/90 par, you might take a look down the line at all the horses and realize that number 1 is right there close to the par, and that might be a rating that you would want to consider and make your considerations from to come up with a pair. And here is where a pair can kind of deviate from standard. If you notice, the key horse number 12 is like stakes quality rating, 49, half of the par, and you might want to pair that one up with one similar to number 1 because you do have several faster horses in here, early speed wise. So you might want to pair up the 2 differing types of run, number 12 and number 6. From the gate, good chances, and more energy in the stretch for number 6. Might want to make that the pair for the ninth because number 6 pays $58 and of course has very attractive odds of 10-1, and number 12 also has 10-1 odds. Number 12 runs second after being bet down considerably. For the 10th race, as we look down the line of ratings, we notice there are several pairs here. And it's kind of a pick'em race according to the morning line. Nobody is a clear favorite, but we might notice that number 6 has got one of those popular 7 furlong ratings of 169 and is 5-1. And at number 4 is only 2 points away, making it a ratings pair with number 6 at 20-1. So you might say, hey, there's a good ratings pair for that race, the 10th. And then when you come to the 11th, you might take a look at the even money favorite, number 3, as one of the low ratings and decide to pair it up with the other low rating, number 2, at 15-1 morning line. That can make a nice pair, and both ratings are good for the distance. And so there you go, pair those up. Number 2 wins and pays 20.60. Bet down a little bit, but that gives you a 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 pick 5. So that is 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Is that enough times 2? Here, let me count on my fingers to help out. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16 times 2. That's 5 times 2 is 32. So we got to divide that by 50 cents. That's $16 for a 2 by 2 by 2 by 2 pick 5. And that puppy pays at the 50-cent level, mind you, almost $124,000. Just a little bit short of that amount. And not bad. But if you just wanted to do like a, let me see, pick 4, it would be 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16. Divide by 50 cents, that's $8. If you wanted to go that route, pick 4, $8. That one pays $5,009.55 at the 50-cent level. And then, of course, the pick 3, which would be the ninth race, pick 3. 50-cent level would be 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8. Pays $1,323. So, apparently, for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, Ability X Ratings pairs are still doing pretty well in the serial win wagers. And, of course, Ability X Ratings are available for the Breeders' Cup and for the entire November season at Churchill Downs. And if you wanted to avail yourself of the Breeders' Cup 3-day weekend deal, which this is kind of sneaky, but the Breeders' Cup is actually available within the 3-day deal, 3-day weekend deal. So for only $6, you could actually get Ability X Ratings for the Breeders' Cup by going to this URL here, which would place you at this location here. And here you have an example of Ability X Ratings at Churchill Downs, and you'd be able to add one to the cart. You would want to select the option here of 3-day weekender. That's Ability X Ratings for Churchill Downs for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And as we know, the Breeders' Cup is this Friday and this Saturday. And so for $6, if you actually were to click that thing, you would have a $6 3-day weekender deal that is the Breeders' Cup. So, kind of sneaky, but very doable. And with that, I'll wrap this up and upload it, and maybe you might want to avail yourself of Ability X Ratings for the Breeders' Cup events, 3-day weekend, and try a few pairs in some serial win wagers, because you could win big, and even a little $20 to win action, or even $2 to win action, like in this ninth race. If you bet that pair, each of them to win, bet each of them to place. Hey, maybe a $1 exacta, simple pick, a likely simple pick, and key horse. Because you can tell after just a few days when they're likely, or when they would appear to be likely. And with these kind of numbers as payoffs, you can make a lot of mistakes and still be way ahead. So with that, I'll sign off here, and hope to see you this weekend at the Breeders' Cup. But don't be telling everybody, because then everybody will be knocking down the odds. And last year, the average payoff was $23.16. So that's pretty good for an average for the Breeders' Cup, especially considering that the handicappers supposedly have it all figured out. Anyway, uh, but hopefully I'll see you there, and best of luck always.